Hello everyone and welcome back to second live stream for today. News summary from Moscow program. As always, I have prepared a news segment for you, and after that, I will join community chat if you and for potential new members, dear friends, I will just say that on my Rumble channel there is a super chat feature, round feature that is available. So if you want to send any question or just support the channel, you're more than welcome to do so. And so yes, probably you notice the difference that I'm kind of experimenting with the time for evening live streams. Previously, I did it 5, 6, 7. It did not work. Actually, I guess maybe 9 o'clock will do a little better. Although, by the way, I know big channels have live streams all day long. Basically, there are so many of them, right? And they always are online, at least some of them. And of course, it is difficult to compete with these giants compared to my small media project. But nevertheless, I'm trying, man. I try my best to stay in this field. And okay, that's been said, dear friends. Let's start with the news segment, and I'm gonna give you a breaking news sort of for this moment, which is that some incident has happened at Democratic National Committee headquarters. Capitol Police is responding to certain situation. No details are known at this point, but what we know is that email was sent to Senate email account holders warned to remain clear of police activity near their DNC. So maybe some active shooter situation or something like that. And yet again, details are not known. Maybe during the stream, we will learn some more. I will continue to check some Telegram channels and media outlets. And so, yes, that's kind of breaking news for this moment, that there is some situation in National Committee headquarters, in Democratic National Committee headquarters, and police is responding. And well, now let's go, dear friends, through some other news. And so, okay, let's start with this report that FBI stated that high-powered bolt-action rifle show prints and palm print were recovered after Charlie Kirk's assassination. A suspect still at large. Authorities claim they have clear images and video of this suspect, but initially they refused to release their images, but later on they did actually, and I can show you, dear friends, statement about this, and also that image.
This heinous crime and find out why they did it. This morning I can tell you that we have recovered what we believe is the weapon that was used in yesterday's shooting. It is a high-powered bolt-action rifle. That rifle was recovered in a wooded area where the shooter had fled. So the FBI laboratory will be analyzing this weapon. Investigators have also collected footwear impression, a palm print, and forearm imprints for analysis. I understand there are a lot of questions about motive. I assure you that all leads, tips are being fully investigated. As of this morning, we have received more than 130 tips. We thank the community for that. The FBI has brought every resource to bear, and we will continue to do so throughout the course of this investigation. The FBI's mission is to protect the American people. It's to uphold the Constitution of the United States. Any attack on the First Amendment is an attack on the very foundation of our democracy. That is why we will relentlessly pursue this case and the shooter until we find him. We also continue to grieve with the family and the community.
So that's what law enforcement agencies share in regards to this shooting of the Charlie Kirk that happened yesterday. And when it comes to image, by the way, this is one of the images that were shared, that spread basically on online. There is some others also. Also, AI is being used to basically make it more clear, these images. But well, question is where this person is right now. If he was acting alone, I think he might get caught in upcoming days. But if he was acting on behalf of certain groups of influence, let's say Israeli secret services or Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky, and such scenarios are considered, at least online, and I guess FBI maybe will consider to investigate that kind of track. Well, if this person was acting on behalf of certain influential forces, probably he's already killed, or he not gonna be caught alive, right? So that he would not talk much. Let's see where investigators, where investigation will lead. Also, FBI is offering about $100,000 reward for help, for assistance in solving the murder of Charlie Kirk and arresting those that were involved. Yet again, if person was acting alone, if this was some psychopath that was brainwashed by media and went to assassinate this person, Charlie Kirk, then there is a chance that he will be caught alive. Otherwise, by the way, if he was operating on behalf of Israel, on behalf of Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky or deep state or whatever, then either those secret services gonna kill him, for whom he worked, or he probably already left U.S. Right. Also, dear friends, of course, today is everyone is remembering 9/11. Tragedy that happened in US. There are so many questions still open, right? And their speculations continue. What was that? Was it actually an operation that was conducted, terrorist attack that was conducted, Al Qaeda operatives on their own, or maybe this was something bigger? We all have our opinions. I think this 9/11 terrorist attack was combined terrorist operation of Israeli secret services and U.S. secret services, or maybe some other secret services of collective U.S. countries were also involved because of the scale of their operation. By the way, they bring down not just their Twin Towers, but Building 7, right? And all this operation, still to nowadays leaves so many open questions, isn't it? All this story of 9/11. My personal take is that this was a false flag operation orchestrated by Israeli secret services, by U.S. secret services, deep state, right? And one might ask, well, why would they do that? And the answer is, quite obvious. Israeli leadership, including Netanyahu, by the way, that is acting prime minister still to nowadays, they were openly advocating for wars, for U.S. to get involved in all sorts of wars in the Middle East, right? And how they would orchestrate. And as we all know, their friends, Israeli secret services have infiltrated U.S. political class, intelligence community, deep state, big time political class, big time, right? You cannot be elected, basically, and on any scale, anywhere, if you are not okay with AIPAC. That's how influential they are, right? And that's one argument, right? And on the other hand, by the way, you should keep in mind that after Cold War ended, U.S. economy didn't change, didn't undergo reforms, and to nowadays heavily dependent on military-industrial complex, right? And to keep busy military-industrial complex, what you have to do, you have to go for wars, right? Unending wars, so that you will constantly supply money to tremendously also influential military-industrial complex. So they did come up with this 9/11 terrorist attack to, on one hand, justify U.S.'s involvement in all sorts of wars in Middle East, And on the other hand, they make happy U.S. military-industrial complex. So their interests actually were coincided there, right? That's what is on the surface to me personally, right? You don't have to be genius to see all this stuff, right? So that's my take. And well, there was a commemoration of casualties of the 9/11 today, and Trump participated in this ceremony. And you guessed what he said, by the way. Instead of acting like a human, really, right? Because after all, with the involvement of U.S. Secret Services or not, but this was a huge tragedy, right? For thousands and thousands of U.S. families, by the way, that lost their loved ones in these terrorist attacks. And Trump could take a more human approach in his speech, right, and talk about those families, remember their casualties, right? But no, he went to threaten everybody, right? He went on tirade that U.S. won all wars, uh, First World War, Second World War, and everything before, in between, and after. And then he began threatening literally, I mean, everybody. Whoever U.S. will consider enemy will be hunted down and destroyed, and that kind of nonsense. By the way, I can give you a short video of his speech part.
Warriors avenged our fallen and sent an unmistakable message to every enemy around the world. If you attack the United States of America, we will hunt you down and we will find you. We'll go all over this sometimes magnificent earth. We will crush you without mercy and we will triumph without question. That's why we named the former Department of Defense the Department of War. It will be different. We won the First World War. We won the Second World War. We won everything before that and in between. And then we decided to change the name. Well, now we have it back to where we all want it. Everybody wanted it. Everybody is so happy to have it back. You will fail and America will win, win, win. The enemy will always fail. 24 years have passed since that Tuesday morning in September, and an entire generation of Americans have come of age in a totally different world. While they cannot remember the agony of that day, they are carrying on the legacy of those who lost. Around 8.
So yes, I mean, Trump was doing Trump thinker, only he was less energetic today. Maybe situation with Charlie Kirk actually influenced him, or maybe he has some, I don't know, health issues. But you clearly can see he is not as energetic as he usually is. Lately, by the way, it is become noticeable, isn't it, that Trump is struggling with energy, kind of. But yet again, maybe I'm missing something there. But yes, that's what Trump said. By the way, went to threaten everybody. And by the way, if US has enemy, maybe because the US is creating enemies, right? Because it's US that attacking countries left and right and killing people like it's nothing. So one should ask question, why US is hated so much in this world? I don't think for something good that US done, right? Probably for some bad that US militaries, US Secret Services, US politicians did. Am I correct? And then to go around and blame that, well, you don't like us. I mean, for God's sake, you just in the last couple of decades killed over 3 million people, misplaced 300 million, destroy lives of a tremendous number of people, by the way, and you're still asking why you being hated? I mean, audacity, man. Unbelievable, unbelievable. Let's continue, dear friends. What else I have here? And dear friends, on topic of 9/11, Tucker Carlson, U.S. journalist Tucker Carlson, just recently released or still working on 9/11 documentary. I have not seen none, but I have heard about it. right? And I believe in his documentary he is using this infamous clip from BBC, by the way, at the time of terrorist attack. And the presenters, why am I saying that this was a pre-planned, right? And the Israeli secret services, US secret services, British secret services were involved in it, right? And some others maybe. One of the reasons, by the way, is that there is so many open questions and also evidences, right? And for example, this video here of BBC, and I'm going to show you now, says that Building 7 collapsed before Building 7 actually collapsed. So they had a script. Those secret services, through their assets, did the work. They send the scripts to Western-controlled media outlets, what to say, when and how, right? And there was some error in the BBC, I guess, because they said that Building 7, that also collapsed during these terrorist attacks, that building collapsed, while on the video, by the way, we can clearly see that building is still standing. So let me show you the video, by the way, of that. I believe I bookmarked the video, but just a sec. That's it, by the way. Just a sec. This technical stuff, man, sometimes, So this is the video.
Building collapse in New York. You might have heard a few moments ago I was talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing, and indeed it has. It seems that this was not a result of a new attack. It was because the building had been weakened during this morning's attacks. We'll probably find out more now about that from our correspondent Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
They are talking about Building 7, by the way.
Well, only really what you already know. Details are very, very...
And look on the right up corner, Building 7 still stands there.
sketchy. As you can see behind me, the trade center appears to be still burning. We see these huge clouds of smoke and ash, and we know that behind that there's an empty piece of what was a very familiar New York skyline, a symbol of the financial prosperity of this city, but completely disappeared now, and New York is still unable to take on board what has happened to them today.
So you see, dear friends, BBC went on air to say that this Building 7 collapsed when that Building 7 was standing there, and they cannot know that building was even damaged or anything. They literally cannot know that. But they had a script, what to say, when, how, all those so-called media outlets in the West that are completely controlled by secret services, by the way, right? That's why I'm refusing to call them a media. And well, look, you can see it, by the way, right there on the left-hand corner. Building is standing. That's a Building 7. So is this good enough reasons to have questions? I think so. So yeah, I mean, some interesting stuff there, by the way. And there are so many also evidences, by the way, that these trade center buildings, these twin towers, they collapsed in a way that, well, as buildings are collapsing when there is demolition operation in the place, right? And I don't know, one have to be completely ignorant, by the way, to actually believe that this was some freaking Bin Laden and his affiliates that come up with this plan and executed it without any involvement of Israeli secret services, US secret services, British secret services, and so on. No, man, Bin Laden gave the scripts to BBC to say that Building 7 collapsed while building was still standing, and collapsed only after some time. Ah, blin. Also, dear friends, when it comes to terrorism, I have this news for you that 2 Ukrainian nationals were arrested for bringing into Georgia 2.4 kilos of explosive materials from Turkey. This was stated by Georgian State Security Service. I'm talking about, of course, Georgia Republic in Southern Caucasus region, former Soviet Republic. And while carrying these explosives, by the way, maybe to conduct some terrorist attack, either on the Georgian territory, where Western ruling class still tries to do regime change, or maybe they were planning to enter Russian Federation from Georgia, right? And they cross, until they reach Georgia, they cross Romania, territory of Romania, Bulgaria, and Turkey. So Ukrainian terrorists seems like walking around Europe and also Turkey like it's nothing, right? Or with their explosives, with weapons, with anything they want, which is quite strange and dangerous stuff, by the way. I think citizens of Romania and Bulgaria, I don't really, I mean, Turkey is itself is a terrorist state, right? So that's a whole different story. But residents of Bulgaria and Romania at least should have questions. What the hell is going on? That every now and then Ukrainian terrorists are passing through their countries with their cars that are packed with explosives, right? And with all sorts of criminal activity, man. Now, special military operation, dear friends. Just a little after I entered this morning's first update, news broke that Russian armed forces liberated the settlements of Sosnovka and Novonikolaevka in Dnipropetrovsk region. Right now on your screen, you see areas of these settlements, Russian troops, and this is the Dnipropetrovsk region. So Russian forces continue to liberate more and more settlements in Dnipropetrovsk direction. If I remember correctly, after these two settlements being liberated, the overall number of liberated settlements in Dnipropetrovsk is about 8, 9, up to 10 settlements already have been liberated, which is important, by the way. Interesting development there. Also, today, Kiev regime Kiev regime itself, by the way, shared information with the public that another Su-27 of this terrorist regime was lost, crashed, as they love to say. Su-27 of the armed forces of Ukraine crashed in Kiev-controlled territory of Zaporozhye Oblast. Their pilot was killed. This was reported by the 39th Tactical Aviation Brigade of the armed forces of Ukraine. And my guess is that, either Russian fighter pilots during the air-to-air battle intercepted, destroyed this enemy hostile plane, or maybe Russian air defense systems. But I don't think this plane was crashed, by the way. Every time we hear about a Kiev regime losing planes, they always use this terminology that, plane was crashed. Okay. More planes of Kiev regime will crash, the better, right? In any ways. I remind you, dear friends, that on August 23rd, Kiev regime again confirmed that another plane of theirs was crashed. That time it was MiG-29. I mean, I really wonder how many planes do they have left, man, especially the Soviet era planes. I mean, so many of them were intercepted and shut down and destroyed by Russian forces. That how they are still operating with them, man, I don't know. What kind of stockpile Soviet Union left in Ukraine after country collapsed that they still are operating these planes after hundreds of them were destroyed, especially Su-27s, by the way. This was a plane that was not that widely exported by Soviet Union as, for example, MiG-29s. I believe Su-27s are still to nowadays, by the way. Only a few countries might have it in its disposal. I can remember right now, for example, Eritrea. I believe Eritrea has Su-27s. Against Ethiopia, they even score kills, right? But who else, man? I don't know, but Su-27 was definitely not as widely exported plane as MiG-29 was. Anyways, hopefully that was the last Su-27 that Kiev regime had in its hands. Also, dear friends, when it comes to Ukrainian crisis, this proxy war that West is waging against Russia, number one diplomat of EU, European Union, and Europe, one might say, Kaja Kallas, made a prediction about it. So the conflict in Ukraine will continue for several more years, stated European diplomacy, head of European diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, whose words are reported by EFE. I think, and this is quote, I think the realistic scenario is that the conflict continues for another couple of years, she said. And this is quite telling stuff, isn't it? I was saying for how long now that globalist control regimes in Europe, including Brussels and elected officials, are not interested in peace, brother. Not at all. They were pushing idea of ceasefire because they wanted and still want break for their proxy regime in Kiev and their forces, right? But when it comes to peace, no, and they don't want to hear anything about it. And that's why day in, day out, they are coming up with all sorts of provocative ideas and steps and actions to derail any possibility, any realistic possibilities for the peace. And now Kaja Kallas is openly saying that, well, this war will continue at least a couple of more years. Well, interesting. In her opinion, the pessimistic scenario for the end of hostilities would be an outcome in which Ukraine would have to make territorial concessions. I mean, this is not a pessimistic scenario, by the way. Pessimistic scenario is when Ukraine will cease to exist on the political map, and there is quite high chances of that. But realistic scenario, if globalists will come to their senses and agree to capitulate before Russia, in that case, pessimistic scenario for them will be that, well, of course, Russia will liberate everything from Kharkov to Odessa, undoubtedly, one way or another, but this will happen, right? We don't care about Western Ukraine that much, so they can deal with Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists that they armed, trained, and they're pumped with money, right? Let the NATO deal with them in Western Ukraine. And, well, if Moscow will have a goodwill, then Kiev and surrounding couple of regions may actually stay on the political map as a landlocked quasi-state, but exclusively in a Russian sphere of influence. That's their scenario, by the way, that they can say is realistic, right? But pessimistic one when there will be no, for them, for globalists, by the way, pessimistic one is that there will be no more Ukraine on the political map at all. Anyways, dear friends, well, Kaja Kallas said what European intention is, right? European elites, that is, and we have this report, for example, and almost every country in Europe, by the way, on regular basis send weapons, money, and so on to this Western proxy regime in Kiev, terrorist regime, and Sweden is no exception. And we had this report today that Sweden announced a new aid package for Ukraine. The Swedish government intends to provide Ukraine with the 70 billion kron, which is 7.4 billion US dollars, in additional military support until 2027. So you see, by the way, they are actually planning more money and more weapons to be allocated for the Kyiv regime, at least until 2027. They are working on prolongation of this war. So how this war will end if globalist control regimes still have this unrealistic, or absolutely unrealistic, and crazy hope that somehow they will manage to achieve a strategical defeat of Russia. But anyways, let me give you some details. This year, Sweden will provide the Ukrainian armed forces with their new aid package in the amount of 9.2 billion crowns, which is $982 million, based on current exchange rate. Defense Minister of Sweden, Paul Johnson, said at their press conference, really, Paul Johnson, Swedish Defense Minister. I mean, this surname, Johnson, I mean, don't really sounds to me like Swedish, but anyways, I mean, that's a whole different topic. Ukraine is the most important priority of Sweden's foreign policy, he also added. And current package includes, by the way, 18 Archer self-propelled guns, total of 44 units have been announced, 105 55mm munition, mobile radars, vessels with their grenade launchers, and their unmanned marine systems, additional weapons and equipment for certain combat boats, 500 motorcycles and airfield support equipment, radar sensors and control systems for 3 Don MK2 anti-aircraft systems, programmable 40mm anti-aircraft munition, additional unnamed systems and projects, quite a lot, by the way. And this is done by literally by each NATO member states, with exception of Hungary. Even Slovakia, by the way, before current government take power, even Slovakia was actively engaged in this process of sending money and weapons to Kiev regime, and was quite successfully demilitarized, basically. And Fico's government acknowledged that, right? So that's what is happening, and then still some people are asking why why special military operation is lasting this long, man. For God's sake, man, we are fighting best fighters that NATO could come up with, right? That is the residents of Kiev-controlled territory, because they are Russians, right? And the Russians know how to fight. If anything, Russians do know how to fight, by the way. So Russian enemies, unfortunately, managed to divide Russian world, indoctrinate significant number of people on Kiev-controlled territory, right? And they are using them as their manpower. Troops that are more capable than NATO countries have, right? And simultaneously, they are, sending their weapons for hundreds of billions of dollars, right? And they still are losing, by the way. So question should be asked, how come that whole NATO is fighting Russia, which is standing alone, right? Just North Korea provided with some little assistance, right? And Iran is also helped with these Shahed drones, or Giran drones, right? That is, I believe, produced in Russia under the license, most likely. And that's about it, right? Russia is fighting all of freaking NATO, by the way, alone. And some people in the West are still, to downgrade Russian success, by the way, they are still speculating that, well, look how many years this war is lasting, and how come that Russian special military operation did not already reach all its tasks. We are fighting whole NATO, by the way, right? Just because NATO troops are not on the battlefield, it does not mean that NATO is not engaged in this war. They are sending best they can in regards to weapons, and they are using best possible militaries that they can come up with, which is unfortunately our brothers and sisters that are living on the Kiev-controlled territory. Brainwashed brothers and sisters, yes, but they still are part of our world, right? Is that not difficult to understand all this stuff, isn't it? Anyways, dear friends, let me continue. And as I reported this morning, dear friends, J.D. Vance lately is making statements that might confuse many, right? For example, J.D. Vance, as I said in the morning's update, first live stream, stated that White House Chief Donald Trump sees no point in economically isolating Moscow, which is not true, to say the least, right? Which is absolutely not true, by the way. And then J.D. Vance also went to say that there is two issues preventing Russia-Ukraine peace deal. And he is also not honest, by the way, in this comment. Let me read some details for you. So talks on resolving the conflict between Russia and Ukraine have been narrowed to two major sticking points, centering on territorial issues and the security guarantees, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said on Tuesday. And he is yet again off point there, right? He's either don't really understand what is going on, or just lacks courage to say as it is, or maybe he don't have permission to say the truth, right? Of course, territorial issue is one that needs to be resolved 100%. And when it comes to security guarantees, by the way, then, well, Moscow was trying to contact Collective West day before special military operation began, right? To discuss Russian concerns in regards to security. It's not about Kiev regime security, by the way, it's about Russian security. That's what is a priority for Moscow. We don't give a damn about security of Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky. Not at all, right? And most importantly, what I just said, dear friends, globalist and globalist control regimes in Europe are not about peace. They are not about peace. And they are openly saying this, by the way. Kaja Kallas, which is definitely not the brightest representative of humankind, but nevertheless, she's a #1 diplomat currently in Europe. And she's saying openly that this conflict will last at least a couple of years, right? So that's the plan they have. They are not hiding it. So why either J.D. Vance or his boss, Donald Trump, U.S. president, or anybody else, by the way, for that matter, from U.S. administration, is talking about it, that European elites are against peace. Why they are not talking about it, man? This is very important, isn't it? I mean, until true is said, right? Until true is acknowledged, I don't think we can actually have any hopes to see progress in regards to achieving sustainable peace, man. Right? And for whatever reason, Washington chose to ally itself, as Biden's administration did, with globalists and globalist control regimes in Europe. And they are misleading the public, by the way, day in, day out, which is unfortunate, but that's the reality. RIA Novosti is also reporting that, I mentioned this in the morning, by the way, US wants to restore their Jackson-Vanik amendment against Russia. This is an answer, by the way, to J.D. Vance's another claim that Trump does not want to, or not tries to isolate Russia economically or politically or whatever. He's not going to succeed. They tried and they failed, right? Western so-called elites. But nevertheless, this information is demonstrating how factually wrong and misleading J.D. Vance is, right? Because this Jackson-Vanik amendment, by the way, basically bans any trade between US and Russia. That's what it is. Also, dear friends, on the topic of US attitude towards Russia, of course, you already know that, and I reported about it, that Trump is demanding, or US administration is demanding from EU member states to impose 100% tariffs on Russian trading partners, first of all on China and India. This is also true, right? And many media outlets, including Western ones, by the way, reported about it. And Wall Street Journal came up with a claim in one of its latest articles on the matter that Brussels considering to refuse this demand from Washington to impose 100% tariffs on Russian partners. But yet again, is Brussels in a position to ignore demands from Washington, especially if they want to keep US in this proxy war against Russia, without which globalist control regimes in Europe would not be able to sustain this conflict for this next couple of years that Kaja Kallas was talking about. We will see. But also, dear friends, on the matter of what American leadership actually does, right? They created this false impression among America First people and many others worldwide that they are for peace. But in reality, they are escalating. They are escalating with Russia. They are escalating with everybody, right? And we have this report, for example, that U.S. administration aims to reduce Russian gas supplies to Europe to zero and completely replace them with its own energy resources. This was stated in an interview with the CNBC by US Secretary of Energy Christopher Wright. So this is official, by the way, right? That says openly, we want Europe to be completely dependent on us. We want them to cut any ties, any cooperation in energy field in this particular case, and same approaches about everything else with Russia, and to take everything from us. That's the American approach, or approach of American administration, right? According to him, European countries have asserted the US that all purchases of Russian energy resources will be phased out by the end of 2026. So that's what Brussels is promising, right? That's what European elites are promising Washington, that, well, by end of 2026, they would not buy nothing from Russia. We will see. We will find out is that true or not. But I'm quite sure. Decoupling of economies of Russia and Europe actually will come handy for Russia, because Russian businesses in all sectors, by the way, energy sector and everything else, are diverting their business, reaching out to new markets, right? And eventually, in the long run, by the way, this will benefit Russia much, much, much more than high-level cooperation, relatively high-level cooperation that Russia had with EU prior to this proxy war being provoked by West against Russia. And I remind you, dear friends, that EU or Europe was basically #1 trade partner for Russia. Not China, not India, not any other country. It was EU, by the way, #1 trading partner. And trade was in numbers of volume of trade was from 3 to 500 billion on year terms, right? And they lost it. Europe lost it, by the way, right? And they are, facing consequences now for that. Leading European economies, well, they are not in a good shape, isn't it? And their situation gonna get worse as time goes by. Anyways, also when it comes to this attitude that actual attitude that US has towards Russia and Russian allies, trade partners, and so on, we have another news from RIA Novosti that US Commerce Secretary sets a condition for resolving trade disputes with India. United States is ready to resolve trade disagreements with India, but only after the New Delhi stops buying Russian oil. US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick stated on Thursday, and you know what, let me give you a short video about some of his statements, dear friends. Oh, wow, 42 members of our community are online. I cannot remember when last time, after 40 minutes, by the way, there was only 40 to 50 people on a live stream. Maybe this evening live streams are a bad idea, and from next week I will no longer do this because I don't know. Anyways, let me show you the video, dear friends, and I will end live stream on that. 43 minutes. I'm grateful to all of you, dear friends, for taking your time to watch this live stream, to watch this news summary program. And where is that video, by the way? That's it.
Going to sort out India. India basically has to open their market, has to stop buying Russian oil. People don't remember, India didn't buy Russian oil before the war with Russia and Ukraine. They had 1% of their oil was from Russia. And now 40% of their oil is from Russia because we've sanctioned it so they can buy it, $7, $10 a barrel cheap. So they're buying it, refining it, and then selling it to the rest of the world and making a bundle. So the president called nonsense on that and said, you got to stop that stuff. So I think India will sort it out once they stop buying Russian oil.
So that's also attitude from Washington towards India, by the way, and same can be said about all the Russian trade partners, right? I don't think this will work. Indian leadership already demonstrated that they're not going to take no orders from nobody, including Washington, but they are still hopeful, kind of, or maybe they are realizing that they're not going to bully India, they're not going to bully other BRICS member states, foundational countries for emerging multipolar world, and just continuing to play this tough, right, with by inertia. Maybe that is the case with them, because statements that they make really makes no sense whatsoever, isn't it? And well, dear friends, I do have some more news also left. All this. I mean, I can show you, dear friends, all these windows. I mean, with the Google Pages, I'm separating basically topics from each other, right? And the rest is news. But I will leave those news for tomorrow, for tomorrow's first update. And maybe really it does not make much sense to continue with the evening live streams, because or you have not be able to see. That's what I'm talking about, by the way. If you notice on top of their page there, some windows. That's all news that I have prepared for this update, and I am somewhere in the middle right now. But yet again, only there is very few of us on a live stream, and if I continue now, then tomorrow's live stream gonna be either very long, or I would not be able to repeat this news, isn't it? And so in order to reach wider audience, I will end the stream now, if I may. Well, quite unfortunate, man. Quite unfortunate. I was hoping that the second updates will help Projector to reach wide audience, and it's exactly opposite is happening. Okay, that's a lesson to be learned, right? Okay, dear friends, this is it for now. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day, dear friends, and take care. See you tomorrow.